I should have locked the door the moment the rain started. Should have ignored the pounding that came at 11:47 p.m., desperate and unrelenting, the kind of sound that says someone is either running from death or bringing it with them. But I didn't. And that single decision, that moment of foolish compassion, would unravel everything I thought I knew about safety, trust, and the razor-thin line between surviving and truly living. The man who collapsed into my arms that night was covered in blood. His white shirt, expensive even beneath the crimson stains, clung to a body that was all hard muscle and barely contained violence. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with dark hair plastered to his forehead by rain and sweat, and eyes so intensely green they seemed to glow even as consciousness flickered behind them. "Please," he gasped, the word torn from his throat like it cost him everything to ask for help. "They'll kill me if they find me here." I should have called the police. Should have pushed him back into the storm and bolted every lock in my tiny apartment. But I was Avery Mitchell, 29 years old, working double shifts as an ER nurse, and my hands moved on instinct before my brain could catch up. I dragged him inside, all 180 pounds of dangerous stranger, and kicked the door shut behind us. What I didn't know then, as I pressed towels against the bullet wound in his shoulder, was that the man bleeding on my kitchen floor was Dante Caruso. The Dante Caruso. The youngest Don in the city's history, the man whose name made grown criminals cross themselves and check over their shoulders. The king of an empire built on fear, loyalty, and violence so surgical it rarely left witnesses. But that night, he was just a man who needed help. And I was just a woman stupid enough to give it. Let me take you back to where this really began. Not the night Dante appeared at my door, but 6 months earlier, when my world first started cracking at the seams. My parents didn't come to my nursing school graduation. I'd sent them the invitation 3 months in advance, called to remind them twice, even offered to pay for their flights from Arizona. My mother's voice on the phone had been distant, distracted by the sound of my younger sister Melody's violin practice in the background. "Oh, Avery, you know how busy we are with Melody's auditions. She's applying to Juilliard, sweetie. We can't possibly leave right now. You understand, don't you?" I understood. I'd always understood. Melody was the talented one, the special one, the daughter worth sacrificing for. I was just Avery, reliable and ordinary, the girl who'd chosen a practical career instead of pursuing something that might make them proud. "It's fine, Mom," I'd said, my voice steady even as something inside me quietly shattered. "I'll send pictures." But it wasn't fine. Sitting in that auditorium, surrounded by families cheering and crying happy tears, watching everyone else have someone to hug after they received their diplomas, I felt the loneliness like a physical weight. My best friend Maya had squeezed my hand, her own family rallying around to include me in their celebration, but it wasn't the same. That night, I'd called my parents to tell them I'd graduated with honors, top 5% of my class. My father had answered, and I could hear a party in the background, Melody's celebration for getting her first callback. "That's great, honey," he'd said absently. "Listen, we're in the middle of something. Can we talk later?" They never called back. 2 weeks later, during a rare family video call, my mother had said the words that still echoed in my head 6 months later. "You know, Avery, we're so relieved you chose nursing. At least we don't have to worry about you the way we worry about Melody. You've always been so content with mediocrity. It's actually a blessing. Content with mediocrity. Like my 4 years of sleepless nights studying, my student loans that would take a decade to pay off, my choice to dedicate my life to helping people, all of it was just settling for less because I wasn't talented enough to be special." I'd ended the call and cried for the first time in years, ugly sobs that left me hollow and aching. Maya had found me an hour later, brought wine and Thai food, and let me rage about the unfairness of having a prodigy sibling who absorbed all the light in every room. "You need to stop trying to prove yourself to people who refuse to see you," she'd said, fierce and loyal. "Build your own life. Let them regret taking you for granted." I'd tried. God, I'd tried. Threw myself into work, picked up extra shifts, started saving money with some vague idea of buying my own place someday. But the loneliness followed me everywhere. The feeling of being invisible, even to the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. That's where I was, emotionally, the night Dante Caruso shattered my careful, lonely existence. "Stay with me," I commanded, pressing gauze against the wound. My nurse training had kicked in automatically, assessing injuries with clinical detachment even as my hands shook. The bullet went through. "You're lucky. Missed the bone, missed the artery. You're going to be okay, but you need to stay conscious." His eyes focused on mine with startling intensity. Even in pain, even bleeding on my floor, there was something commanding about him. Something that said he was used to being obeyed. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice rough but surprisingly gentle. "Avery. And you need to stop talking and let me work." "Avery," he repeated, like he was memorizing it. "Thank you, Avery. You're saving my life." "Yeah, well, you can thank me by not dying and bringing whoever shot you to my door." A sound escaped him that might have been a laugh. "Smart woman. What made you open the door?" "Temporary insanity." "Now shut up." I worked quickly, cleaning the wound with supplies from the first aid kit I kept stocked from the hospital. The bullet had indeed gone clean through, which was both good and bad. Good because I didn't have to extract it. Bad because it meant 2 wounds to pack and dress. As I worked, I studied him. Mid-30s, I guessed, with a face that was all sharp angles and controlled strength. Even injured, he held himself with a coiled readiness that spoke of violence barely contained. His clothes were expensive, custom-tailored before the blood ruined them. His watch alone probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. "Who are you?" I asked as I taped the final bandage. "And who's trying to kill you?" "Better if you don't know." "Better for who?" "Because the man bleeding in my apartment doesn't get to make that call." Those green eyes assessed me with uncomfortable precision. "Business associates." A disagreement that got out of hand. Business associates don't usually settle disagreements with bullets. Mine do. The simple honesty of it should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over my nerves. Maybe it was the shock wearing off. Maybe it was years of ER training dealing with gunshot victims. Or maybe, after months of feeling invisible and insignificant, there was something darkly validating about being needed, even by a dangerous stranger. "Can you stand?" I asked. He tried, got halfway up, and his face went pale. I caught him before he could fall, his weight nearly taking us both down. He was solid muscle and barely contained power, and having him this close made my heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "Couch," I directed, half dragging him the few feet to my second-hand sofa. "You're staying there tonight. In the morning, you leave and we never speak of this again." Agreed. But something in his expression said he was lying. I should have known then. Should have recognized that a man like him didn't make promises he intended to keep. But I was exhausted, running on adrenaline and the surreal unreality of the situation, so I just nodded and went to wash the blood off my hands. When I came back, he was asleep. Or unconscious. I checked his pulse, reassured myself he was stable, then stood there in my kitchen watching a dangerous stranger sleep on my couch and wondering what the hell I'd just done. But what happened next changed everything. I woke to the smell of coffee and something else, bacon? For a disoriented moment, I thought I'd dreamed the whole thing. Then I remembered, sat up so fast my head spun, and stumbled out of my bedroom. Dante stood in my kitchen, shirtless, the white bandage stark against olive skin, cooking breakfast like he owned the place. He'd found my emergency stash of groceries and was somehow making bacon and eggs with one functional arm. "You should be resting," I said, my voice still rough with sleep. He turned, and his smile transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. "I'm not good at resting." "Coffee's ready. Sit. This is my apartment." And you saved my life. Least I can do is make you breakfast. He plated the food with surprising skill. Besides, we need to talk. I sat, more because my knees felt weak than because he'd told me to. He'd found my favorite mug, filled it with coffee made exactly the right strength, and set it in front of me like he somehow knew how I took it. You need to leave, I said, but it came out less firm than I'd intended. Before whoever shot you figures out you're here. They won't. He sat across from me, moving carefully. I had someone clean up the trail last night while you slept. As far as anyone knows, I disappeared. Someone. You mean you called people? From my apartment. I needed to ensure your safety. The men who shot me, if they'd followed me here, you'd be in danger. The casual way he discussed violence made my stomach clench. Who are you? Really? He studied me for a long moment, some calculation happening behind those green eyes. Then he sighed, and I saw the exact moment he decided to tell me the truth. My name is Dante Caruso. I run certain operations in this city: shipping, construction, waste management. Some of it's legal. Some of it operates in gray areas. And yes, before you ask, I'm what polite people call organized crime. The room tilted slightly. I'd heard the name Caruso before, everyone in the city had. Whispered in the same breath as words like Mafia, dangerous, untouchable. And I'd brought him into my home, stitched him up, let him sleep on my couch. You're the mob boss, yes. No apology in his voice, just fact. The youngest Don in 3 generations. I took over when my father was killed 4 years ago. I should have been terrified. Should have been calculating how quickly I could get him out and scrub every trace of his existence from my apartment. Instead, I found myself asking, why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. Because keeping you in the dark puts you in more danger, not less. And because, he hesitated, something almost vulnerable flickering across his features. Because I don't want to lie to the woman who saved my life. The sincerity in his voice did something strange to my chest. This wasn't some calculated manipulation. This was real honesty, offered like a gift I hadn't asked for. The men who shot you. Will they come after you again? They'll try. Last night was an ambush, a rival family making a move on my territory. But I'm not easy to kill. That dangerous smile returned. And now they've made me very motivated to ensure they regret it. I pushed away my plate, breakfast forgotten. I need you to leave. Please. I have a quiet life, a simple life. I can't get involved in whatever war you're fighting. I know. And I will leave. He stood, moved to where he'd draped his ruined shirt over a chair. From the pocket, he pulled out a business card and a set of keys. But take these. The card has a number. If anything feels wrong, if you see anyone watching your building, if you feel unsafe for even a moment, you call. Someone will come. I don't want, it's not negotiable, Avery. His voice went hard, commanding. You helped me. That makes you my responsibility. Those keys are to an apartment 3 blocks from here, 20th floor, southeast corner. It's empty, clean, secure. If you ever need to disappear for a while, it's yours. I stared at the keys like they might bite me. I don't need, you might. He moved closer, and suddenly the kitchen felt too small. The men who want me dead, they won't stop looking. And if they find out you helped me, they'll use that. Use you. I won't let that happen. This is insane. This is my world. His fingers brushed mine as he pressed the keys into my palm. I'm sorry you got dragged into it. But I promise you, Avery, no one will hurt you. Not while I'm alive. He left before I could argue further, slipping out of my apartment like a ghost. I stood there holding keys to a stranger's apartment and a business card with just a phone number, my quiet life suddenly feeling anything but safe. What I didn't know then was that Dante Caruso never made empty promises. And his protection, once given, was absolute. 3 days passed. I worked my shifts, came home to my empty apartment, tried to convince myself the whole thing had been some bizarre fever dream. But the key sat on my kitchen counter, impossible to ignore, and twice I caught men in dark suits watching my building from across the street. The first time, I'd dismissed it as paranoia. The second time, I'd called the number on the business card. Avery Mitchell? The voice was professional, clipped. Stay inside. Lock your doors. Someone's on their way. Who is this? A friend of Mr. Caruso's. You're being watched. We're handling it. The call ended before I could respond. 20 minutes later, the men across the street were gone, replaced by different men who nodded politely when I peeked through my curtains. My phone rang at midnight. An unknown number. Hello? It's Dante. His voice was quieter than I remembered, tired. I heard you called. Are you okay? Define okay. There were men watching my apartment. Your men, I assume, not the ones who shot you. Mine now. The others won't bother you again. But Avery, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Something in his tone made my breath catch. What? How attached are you to your current life? The question was so unexpected I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. Why? Because the men who want me dead, they've identified you as someone important to me. They're going to keep coming, keep watching, waiting for an opportunity to use you as leverage. I can protect you here, but it's harder, riskier. Or what? Or you come work for me. I have a medical facility that needs a nurse, one who can be discreet. The pay is triple what you're making now. The work is similar, trauma, emergency care, but for people who can't exactly walk into a regular ER. You'd be safe, protected, and you'd never have to worry about money again. You're asking me to work for the mob. I'm asking you to work for me. There's a difference. A pause, then softer, I'm asking you to trust me, Avery. Just for a little while. Let me keep you safe. Every rational instinct screamed at me to refuse. To hang up, pack a bag, run somewhere far away where mob bosses didn't know my name. But that lonely, invisible part of me, the part that had been overlooked and undervalued for so long, whispered something different. Here was someone who saw me. Really saw me. Not as mediocre or ordinary or a disappointment. But as someone worth protecting. Worth investing in. Worth saving. 1 month, I heard myself say. Trial basis. If I don't like it, I walk away clean. Deal. I'll send a car tomorrow at noon. Pack light. Everything else you need will be provided. He hung up before I could change my mind. That night, I barely slept. When I did, I dreamed of green eyes and dangerous promises, and a life that might actually be worth living. The facility was nothing like I'd expected. No dark warehouse or sketchy back alley operation. Instead, it was a legitimate medical clinic on the 3rd floor of a building Dante apparently owned, complete with state-of-the-art equipment and a staff of 3 other medical professionals who nodded professionally when I arrived. Welcome, Miss Mitchell. The head doctor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands, extended her hand. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. Mr. Caruso said you'd be joining us. We're glad to have you. The work was exactly as Dante had described, trauma care for people who couldn't risk hospital questions. Gunshot wounds, knife injuries, broken bones from fights I didn't ask about. Every patient paid in cash and left without paperwork. It should have felt wrong. Should have violated every ethical standard I'd been taught. But instead, it felt oddly right. These weren't faceless criminals. They were people, some bad, some just caught in bad circumstances, who needed help and had nowhere else to go. And I was good at it. Better than good. For the first time in my career, I felt like I was making a real difference, not just processing patients through an overworked ER system. Dante visited the clinic twice that first week. Both times, he'd stood in the doorway watching me work with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He never interrupted, never questioned my methods, just observed with those sharp green eyes that seemed to see everything. The second visit, he'd waited until my shift ended. "Walk with me," he'd said, not quite a question. We'd walked through the building's private garden, a rooftop oasis I hadn't known existed. The city sprawled below us, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. "You're good at this," Dante said quietly. "Better than I expected." "Because you expected me to fail?" "Because I expected you to run." He turned to face me, and the vulnerability in his expression stole my breath. "Most people do. When they really understand what my world involves, they run. But you didn't." "I'm still deciding if that makes me brave or stupid." His laugh was genuine, warm. "Both, probably. Same as me." Over the following weeks, something shifted between us. The professional distance we'd maintained started crumbling. He'd bring coffee during my late shifts, would sit and talk about everything except the violence that had brought us together. I learned about his childhood, how he'd never wanted this life but had inherited it along with his father's empire. How he was trying to legitimize the family businesses, to build something that wouldn't require his future children to look over their shoulders forever. I told him about my family, about Melody, and my parents' casual dismissal of everything I'd accomplished. About feeling invisible and mediocre and never quite good enough. "You're not mediocre," he'd said fiercely, his hand finding mine in the dark garden. "You're extraordinary. Anyone who can't see that is blind." The first time he kissed me, we were standing in that garden 3 months after I'd started working for him. He'd just told me about losing his father, about watching him die and being unable to save him. The grief in his voice had broken something open in my chest, and when I'd reached up to touch his face, he'd pulled me close and kissed me like I was air and he was drowning. It should have been complicated. Should have been a terrible idea on every level. But instead, it felt inevitable. Like every choice I'd made since the night I opened my door had been leading exactly here. "I'm falling for you," he'd whispered against my lips. "Tell me that's not completely insane." "It's completely insane," I'd whispered back. "But I'm falling too." But what happened next would test everything we'd built. The attack came on a Friday night, 5 months after I'd started working at the clinic. I was finishing up with a patient, a young man who'd been slashed in a territorial dispute, when the building's security alarm screamed to life. Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "We need to move to the safe room. Now." "What's happening?" "The Russo family. They're making a move on Mr. Caruso's operations. This facility is one of their targets." My blood turned to ice. The Russos were the family Dante had been quietly at war with for months, the ones who'd shot him that first night. They wanted his territory, his power, and they weren't above killing innocent people to get it. We moved quickly, herding the 2 patients who were stable enough into the reinforced safe room hidden behind a false wall in the supply closet. The third patient, the young man I'd been stitching, was still sedated from the local anesthetic and couldn't be moved safely. "Go," I told Dr. Chen. "I'll stay with him." "Avery, I'm not leaving a patient." "Go." "I'll be fine." The lie tasted bitter, but she didn't have time to argue. The sound of gunfire erupted from the floors below, sharp cracks that made my hands shake as I continued working on the young man's wounds. The door burst open 10 minutes later. Not Dante's men. 3 strangers in dark suits, weapons drawn, faces hard with intent. "Where's Caruso?" the lead man demanded, his gun pointed at my chest. "Not here." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "This is a medical facility. We have patients. If you're going to shoot someone, shoot me. But let me finish stitching him up first." The man's eyes narrowed. You're the nurse. Mitchell, right? The one Caruso's been protecting. My silence was answer enough. Perfect. His smile was cruel. You're coming with us. Caruso wants you alive? He can trade territory for your life. They grabbed me, zip-tied my hands, and dragged me toward the stairwell. I fought, screaming, but they were professionals. Trained. I didn't stand a chance. We made it 3 floors down before all hell broke loose. Dante appeared like a force of nature, flanked by a dozen men in tactical gear. His face was a mask of cold fury, and the gun in his hand looked like an extension of his arm. Let her go, he said, his voice emptier than I'd ever heard it. Dead calm. Terrifying. Now. Or what, Caruso? The man holding me pressed his gun against my temple. You'll shoot? Risk hitting your pretty nurse? I don't miss. Dante's eyes met mine across the distance. In them, I saw apology, rage, and something that looked like fear. Avery, close your eyes. I did. The gunshot was impossibly loud in the enclosed stairwell. The man holding me dropped, his grip going slack. Strong hands caught me before I could fall, and then Dante was there, cutting the zip ties, checking me for injuries with hands that shook slightly. Are you hurt? Did they hurt you? I'm fine. Dante, I'm fine. But I wasn't. The shock was setting in, making my whole body tremble. How did you know? I always know where you are. His arms came around me, holding tight. Always. No one takes you from me. Ever. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. But the danger wasn't over. The Russo family retaliated 3 days later. Not against Dante directly, but against something they knew would hurt worse. They went after my family. Dante's security team intercepted the threat before it could materialize, whisking my parents and Melody to a safe house before the Russos could reach them. My mother's phone call came at 3 a.m, hysterical and terrified. Avery? What have you done? Men with guns showed up at our house, said we were in danger, that we had to leave immediately. They mentioned your name. What the hell is going on? For the first time in my life, I heard real fear for me in her voice. Not dismissal, not disappointment. Fear. Because suddenly, I wasn't invisible mediocre Avery anymore. I was someone worth killing to hurt someone powerful. I'll explain everything, I said quietly. But Mom? You need to do exactly what those men tell you. They're there to protect you. Protect us from what? From the consequences of me finally matching to someone. I hung up before she could respond. Dante found me an hour later, standing in the garden where we'd first kissed. He didn't say anything, just pulled me against his chest and held me while I shook. This is my fault, he said finally. I should have anticipated they'd go after your family. Should have protected them sooner. This isn't your fault. And Dante? Thank you. For saving them. He pulled back to look at me, his expression raw. Avery, I need you to understand something. This is my life. People I care about become targets. Leverage. It doesn't matter how careful I am, how much security I provide. There's always risk. I know. Do you? Because I'm giving you an out right now. I can set you up anywhere in the world. New identity, money, protection. You and your family. You'd be safe, free from all of this. I studied his face, this dangerous man who'd somehow become my entire world. And if I don't want an out? Then you need to accept that this is forever. That I'm forever. Because Avery, I love you. Completely. Terrifyingly. And I won't let you go unless you tell me to. My parents arrived at the safe house the next morning, still shaken, still confused. Melody clung to our mother, her violin forgotten for once. When they saw me with Dante, flanked by armed guards, understanding dawned in my father's eyes. "You're with him," he said flatly. "The mob boss. His name is Dante." "And yes, I am." My mother's face went white. "Avery, this is insane. You need to come home with us. Right now. Before you destroy your life completely." "My life?" Something snapped inside me, months of resentment and hurt boiling over. "You mean the mediocre life you've always been so relieved I settled for? The life where I was invisible and ordinary and never worth your attention? That's not, it is. You've spent 29 years making it clear that I'm not special like Melody. That my accomplishments don't matter because they're practical instead of extraordinary. Well, guess what? I found someone who thinks I'm extraordinary. Who sees me, really sees me. And yes, he's dangerous. Yes, his world is violent. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I matter." Silence fell like a weight. Melody was crying quietly. My father looked stricken. But it was my mother's expression that broke me, not anger, but recognition. Maybe even shame. "We never meant," she started. "I don't care what you meant. I care what you did. And right now, you're safe because the man you're calling insane put his people at risk to protect you. So maybe before you judge my choices, consider that he's shown me more care in 5 months than you've shown in 29 years. I walked away before they could respond, Dante following silently. In the hallway, he caught my hand. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. They needed to hear it. I needed to say it." I looked up at him, this complicated, dangerous man who'd given me back my sense of worth. "I love you too. In case that wasn't clear." His smile was brilliant, transformative. "It's getting clearer." The war with the Russo family ended 2 weeks later. Not with more violence, but with a negotiation brokered by the Commission, the council of families that maintained order in the city's underworld. Dante gave up 2 of his smaller territories in exchange for peace and an agreement that families, all families, including those of associates, were off limits. My parents stayed in the city, though they returned to their own home under discreet security. Melody gave her first recital since the incident, and for the first time in years, I attended. Dante came with me, his presence drawing stares and whispers, but his hand in mine was steady and sure. After the performance, my mother approached me while Dante was speaking with his security detail. "You were right," she said quietly. "About how we treated you. We didn't realize," she swallowed hard. "We took you for granted. Assumed you'd always be okay because you were so strong, so capable. We poured everything into Melody because she seemed fragile. But we failed you, Avery. And I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Years of hurt couldn't be erased by one apology. But it was a start. I need you to understand something," I said carefully. "Dante is not a phase. This is my life now. And if you want to be part of it, you need to accept all of it. Even the dangerous parts? Especially those. Because the dangerous parts made me strong enough to stop needing your approval." She flinched but nodded. "Then I'll try. We'll try. Your father and I, we want to know this version of you. The strong one. The one we should have seen all along." It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. But it was honest. And sometimes, honesty is more valuable than perfection. 1 year after the night I opened my door to a bleeding stranger, Dante proposed. Not with fanfare or dramatic gestures, but in the quiet of the rooftop garden where we'd first kissed. "I can't promise you safety," he said, holding a ring that caught the starlight. "I can't promise that my world won't always carry danger. But I can promise you'll never be invisible again. Never be taken for granted. You'll be my partner, my equal, the most important person in my life. Always." I took the ring, slid it onto my finger, and pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like coming home. "I don't need promises of safety," I whispered. "I need you. All of you. The dangerous parts, the complicated parts, the parts that would terrify any sensible woman. Good thing you're not sensible. Good thing you're worth the risk." We married quietly 3 months later, just close family and a people who'd become family through loyalty and blood. Dr. Chen was there, and Marco, Dante's second-in-command. Melody played violin at the reception, a gift that felt like a peace offering. My parents attended, awkward but present, trying. My wedding vows were simple: I choose you. Every day, in every way. For exactly who you are. Dante's were simpler: you saved my life the night you opened your door. But you saved my soul every day after. I'm yours. Forever. Looking back now, I can trace every decision that led me here. Opening the door. Making the coffee. Accepting the job. Choosing love over safety. Each one felt insane at the time. Each one was exactly right. Because here's what I learned: sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most honest one. Sometimes being brave means accepting that you deserve to be seen, to be valued, to matter. Sometimes love looks nothing like what you expected: messier, more complicated, carrying risks you never imagined. But sometimes, those are exactly the loves worth fighting for. I'm Avery Caruso now. Wife of the most feared man in the city. Nurse to the people society forgets. Daughter finally finding her voice. And for the first time in 29 years, I'm not mediocre or invisible or ordinary. I'm extraordinary. Not because of who I married, but because I finally started believing I deserved to be. And that belief? That changed everything.